I love Spy Kids. Its originality, uniqueness, and fun makes me think about how grateful I am that it exists every time I watch it. But there's one thing about Spy Kids that I love, but I've never been able to wrap my brain around, and that's Floop.
It's a cruel, cruel world, all you little boys and girls, and some mean, nasty people want to have you for their supper. But if you follow me, you can all be free, you can all be free.
Alan Cumming is so charismatic, crazy, and iconic in this role that you can't help but love it. But what the heck is Floop talking about in his song? I've always wondered what's the ideology behind his song. Is the movie making some kind of commentary with it? Because it feels like it. I always thought he was trying to brainwash the kids watching his show, but brainwash them with what message? So to figure out what the movie's initial villain's negative ideological force was, I thought about and looked into some of the general positive forces of the movie. I realized that one of the movie's huge forces for good is its positive representation of its Latin American main characters. Then it hit me. Just like in the movie, I listened to Floop's song again and it sounded different.
It's a cruel, cruel world, all you little boys and girls.
Something bad is happening. Something really dangerous is going on.
And some mean, nasty people want to have you for their supper.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
But if you follow me, you can all be free, you can all be free. As a bird on a big TV, if you dream, my dream.
The American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back.
You can dream my dream, you can dream my dream.
This fear-based rhetoric that is often used to rally opposition to oppress a group of people is a trait of fascism. Floop's song is fear-mongering that the world is a dangerous place because there's horrible people out there that want to do you harm, and he's urging you to follow him to fix the problem with the promise of freedom and a dream. He even dehumanizes his enemies and wants to lock them up.
Lock him up!
He also creates a mindless army. The Washington Post has an article that lists the characteristics of fascism and compares them to the actions of Mussolini and Hitler. Floop displays some of these traits, such as theatricality, a special effort to appeal to young people, glorification of violence.
I snap my fingers. And my fingers snap you.
And his military use. How perfect is it to have a Latin American family of heroes in opposition against a villain that displays fascist and extreme nationalist attributes? Actually, the more I look into it, the more I believe that this is the angle that Spy Kids writer-director Robert Rodriguez was going for. Because his R-rated Spy Kids spin-off movie, Machete, is blatantly centered around the rhetoric that some American politicians use towards Mexicans and immigration and the oppression that it brings. Now back to Floop. Although Floop has a random change of heart and the villain role shifts to Minion, part of Floop's transformation comes from the innocence of a child. The foil to Floop ends up being Junie. Floop uses fear-mongering in his song to get kids to follow him, and from the beginning of the movie we see that Junie has a fear problem. He even has warts from his hands always being sweaty, so naturally he's one of Floop's biggest fans. This is what happens when Junie and Floop first meet.
Do you know why you have sweaty hands?
From being scared all the time.
You don't look very scared to me.
That's because I'm mad. You kidnapped my parents, made Psycho robot children, and swallowed up my sister.
Junie isn't scared anymore because he's angry about everything that Floop has done, like separating families and building a violent army of followers. The problem is solved with a simple solution.
But it's not that simple.
Teach them to be good.
Junie inspires Floop to use his ability to create and inspire for good.
You won today, Junie. And not because you were the biggest or the strongest, but because you were pure of heart and of mind.
The movie ends with showing that Junie's warts are gone. The news is on, and instead of showing fear-mongering and acts of violent hatred, it shows Floop's kid army and how much good they're doing around the world.
Who are these children, and why are they so good at being good?
So I guess a message in this movie is, when you're faced with messages of fear and oppression, stay pure of heart like a kid and use your power of creativity and inspiration for good. Because messages of love can spread just as easily as messages of hate.